Welcome to the Environment Challenge for UPSC preparation. I don't need to tell you that environment is a very important part of the UPSC syllabus, both for prelims and for mains. It is just a burning topic. Quite literally, it's burning because of climate change, which has led the global temperatures to rise. The planet also appears to be burning, and a lot is going on in this domain of environment. A lot is going on in academics, a lot is going on in international forums. It is proving to be a harder challenge to overcome. It appears again and again in current affairs. It is consuming more and more primacy as one of the biggest problems and threats of humankind, not just of India. And for these reasons, it is one of the most important parts of the syllabus itself because it is one of the biggest challenges which the government faces, which the world is in fact facing. So there's really no question about environment and the level of preparation you need for this because they will ask you very pinpointed and pertinent questions in the exam, in the prelims as well as the mains. And I will walk you through uh, the nature of the questions which have been asked. I will take you through also the syllabus of what the environment syllabus is, how to categorize it, and then I will introduce you to this very interesting challenge, which will give you a very large and a very broad overview of the entire domain of this topic, this discipline, in fact, and it will prepare you for the UPSC exam very efficiently, very optimally, and more importantly than anything else, it will build this foundation and you will encounter these overarching themes which keep appearing in environment and which keep appearing in the UPSC exam for obvious reasons, which will become obvious to you as I go along. So without further ado, let me introduce you to what the UPSC expects from you, what type of questions appear about environment, what the syllabus is, and then we'll quickly move on to the details of your challenge, the rules, and everything else that you need to know. So take a look at some of the questions from a previous year question, the question paper of UPSC Prelims. These are just some of the questions, but it's useful to see these because they tell you about the type of question, the difficulty level, and so on. So don't get intimidated by this. Don't be afraid. But do notice what type of questions there are. You see, the first one asks, among the following crops, which one is the most important anthropogenic source of methane and nitrous oxide? Now, if you don't know, anthropogenic source means man-made. That is man-centric. And this question obviously wants to focus on climate change and intoxicants and global warming and so on, because methane is it's a greenhouse gas, and it wants to basically ask which part of agriculture, which part of our food crops is most environmentally unsustainable. So that is the intention of the question. That's why they've asked you this. And you will soon see that it's not hard to capture. You just need to know where to prepare from and what to look for. Take a look at the second one. It's about wetlands and their location. And it's basically more of a factual question. But again, it is an important part of environment that you need to know what wetlands are because they are very important for the ecosystem. And you also need to know why they're important. Moving on, you have Climate Action Tracker, which monitors the emission reduction pledges of different countries. This, of course, is about climate change and these international efforts which the UNFCCC and other organizations have been making to get everyone on board, all the countries on board, to basically coordinate efforts to fight this climate change thing. And it doesn't seem to be working very well because it's very hard to find a consensus. And this itself forms a major part of this discipline of environment, and very frequent questions are asked from this area, especially India's role in the global efforts, what India has done, what India's obligations are, what promises, pledges have been taken, and so on. But I'll tell you more about that as I go. Take a look at the fourth one. Again, climate. It's again about international coordination and international cooperation. Why I showed you these questions is not to just introduce the nature of the question. It's actually to pinpoint something very important here. Do you notice that these questions, all of them, without exception, were about humans' impact on the environment? So when you really get down to preparing environment for the UPSC exam, it's really not about the environment because nobody expects you to become an ecologist. Nobody expects you to become an environmental scientist. The crux of the entire exam and the syllabus, regardless of what anybody tells you, is humans' impact on the environment. What we need to do to conserve it and what the challenges are. Okay, so this entire domain of environment, regardless of prelims, regardless of mains, is about the human impact. And that is the most overarching theme that you will find. There is no need for you to get into the scientific details of the nitrogen cycle or thermonuclear circulation and stuff like that. Just get that orientation correct. Okay, it's about human impact. It's about what's going on, what the impact is, how it can be mitigated, and I'll tell you more. Another example, case in point, these are some of the questions from the mains exam. Notice the same themes. Notice pretty much exactly the same themes, in fact. It's almost as if the topics and the thrust is the same. It's just that the format of the questions has changed from objective to subjective. The first one is about the Green Grid Initiative, World Leaders, the Summit of COP26, again, international collaboration, cooperation, combined. In fact, all three of those are like that. And these are the questions which came in the previous year. So you know just how important this thing is. And also, I hope that with this demonstration, you can narrow the focus. Of course, you have to read various topics from environment. You can't really get away with that. You need to know which are the endangered species, and you need to know all the issues to some extent, but it all boils down to this type of question, this type of content. What is going wrong? What is causing it? How do we control it? Those are the overarching themes to remember. Now, what does the syllabus say? The syllabus, the words used in the syllabus, regardless of what I just said, although that's what the hidden meaning of it is, are these. UPSC syllabus of prelims is basically says general issues in environmental ecology, biodiversity, climate change that do not require subject specialization. And by this last caveat that they've added is exactly what I was saying before, that you don't need to be a climate scientist or an environmentalist. You just need to know what the issues are. You need to know how people are planning to mitigate them. You need to know what is causing the damage, and you need to know everything that's going on in the international arena about this with a particular focus on India. And I'll tell you in this challenge how you will do that. The UPSC syllabus for mains for environment is basically rather simple, and it's deceptively simple. It's really not that simple. It says conservation, environmental pollution, degradation, environmental impact assessment. When you say environmental impact, you've basically covered everything. You know, everything that from soil pollution to ocean pollution to algal blooms to coral bleaching, you name it, everything that comes under that ambit of environment, ozone depletion, extinction of species according to human activities, the decline of bees as important pollinators which disturb the ecosystem, etc., etc. All of this comes in this syllabus, right? You know the exact words used, you know the thrust of the exam, you know the type of questions. Now, let's move on to an important part, the challenge itself, which I will explain to you in some detail. Now, to reiterate, to say what I've already said in some more detail, I told you overarching themes are conservation, human impact, mitigation. This is the entire thrust of you studying environment. When you encounter an editorial in the newspaper, or when you encounter news in the newspaper, whether that's about a climate meeting, or it's about a treaty which has been signed, or it's about a new initiative which has been launched by the government, or it's about some bad news which the United Nations has released about, perhaps, say, the rise in global temperatures and how it's going to impact countries. Whether that's about the Green Climate Fund, whether that's about blue carbon, whether that's about fracturing and the impact of mining, whether that's about nuclear waste, all of these things to figure out, everything that has to do with the planet and nature and the ecosystem and everything that disturbs it is an area of your interest that will fall in these categories invariably. That's what you need to know about environment. Now, let me bring you to the real task. Let me bring you to the real challenge and what we are going to do, how we are going to tackle this entire subject of environment, which, if you think about it, can be very large. I mean, if you go into the details of the carbon cycle, and if you start to read these bulky books which are out there available in the market, how much really exam oriented and practical content will you end up capturing, do you think? For every 100 pages that you read there of dense information, of factual information, how much of it is really relevant to the type of questions which I just showed you? I would suspect that there aren't too many. And that's because I believe we're getting a little bit sidetracked. And I suppose it's nobody's fault, certainly not yours. And when you ask the question about preparation of environment, ultimately these books come up. And that's the sources we all end up referring to. But what we end up not doing, which I think we should do, which we'll do today, is to refer to the most authentic sources, most powerful, credible, outdated sources which are out there for free. We don't use those. Technology has given us all the information that we need at the tip of our fingertips. But perhaps we don't use them because we don't know how to use them. And one case in point, which I will demonstrate, I will prove it to you. One case in point is Wikipedia. Now, it's not the best source for everything, but it's certainly an incredible source for the environment, which is why this particular challenge does not require any sources, any books, no PDFs, no unnecessarily long, complicated videos or books or study material is required. The only thing you need is a decent internet connection and for you to be able to access Wikipedia. And that too, a very particular article in Wikipedia. Now, your challenge, before I tell you your challenge, I suppose I should tell you the rules. The rules of the challenge are rather simple, very simple in fact. There are only two rules. The first rule is do not exit Wikipedia. As I take you through the challenge, I'm going to give you a task. I'm going to give you a challenge. As you complete this challenge, you must rely only on Wikipedia. You can jump from link to link inside Wikipedia, but you can't exit it. You can't run a Google search. You can't exit Wikipedia at all. You have to do whatever you need to do on Wikipedia inside the links of Wikipedia. Rule number 2 is that you need to follow rule number 1. So that should tell you everything about how it's going to work. And now let me take you to round 1 of this challenge. This challenge consists of 2 rounds. I'll take you through round 1. I'll share my screen and show you what it's going to look like. And this is what you need to do in round 1. So in round 1, it's very simple. I want you to open this link, this Wikipedia link, which I will share with you. Nothing fancy about it. It's a Wikipedia page about the natural environment. This is where we begin. I don't want you just to scroll through it. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to read every single word written in this passage in a particular way. So, take the introduction for instance. The natural environment or natural world encompasses all living and non-living things occurring naturally, meaning in the case it's not artificial. The term is most often applied to Earth or some part of the Earth. The environment encompasses the interaction of all living species, climate, weather, and natural resources that affect human survival and economic activity. The concept can be distinguished as components. Some theoretical information. In contrast to the natural environment is the built environment. Built environments are where humans have fundamentally transformed landscapes and urban settings and agricultural land conversions. And so while you read this, just read it and try to make sense of it. It's very simple really. There's really not much you need to apply your mind to. Just read what it says. In contrast, the natural environment is built environment. People cannot find absolute clean natural environments on Earth, and naturalness becomes varied as it changes. The massive environmental changes of humanity is the Anthropocene. The Anthropocene. Now, when you encounter these words which are highlighted in blue, it basically means, if a word is written in blue, it basically means that's a link. It's a link to another Wikipedia page. Now, I don't want you to jump to this page. If my cursor is on Anthropocene, the word Anthropocene, then it will give me this sort of a drop down brief synopsis of that page. I won't click on this. I'm not allowed to click on it. You're not supposed to click on any link for this round. For this round, no link clicking at all. But I want you to take your cursor and just read the synopsis. The Anthropocene, what does it mean? What is the Anthropocene? The Anthropocene is a proposed geological epoch dating from the commencement of significant human impact on Earth's geology and ecosystems, including but not limited to anthropogenic climate change. Regardless of the language, which is not extremely friendly to read, you know that it means that it basically an epoch in history and geology with human impact is enormous. This is all. I don't want you to click on it. I don't want you to read any more about it. And you read this statement, for instance, the massive environmental changes of humanity in the Anthropocene have fundamentally affected all natural environments, including from climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution of plastic and other chemicals in the air and water. So then I will take my cursor to climate change and I'll see what this synopsis tells me about climate change. Contemporary climate change includes both global warming and its impact on Earth's weather patterns. There have been previous periods of climate change, but the current changes are distinctly more rapid and not due to natural causes. So that's what it says about climate change. Good enough for now. We'll get into details later. Let's see what it says about biodiversity loss. It includes the worldwide extinction of different species as well as the local reduction or loss of species in a certain habitat, resulting in a loss of biological diversity. The latter phenomena can be temporary or permanent depending on whether the environmental degradation. This is, you see, then it is saying all of this in terms of the Anthropocene. So basically it means that this Anthropocene is an era of history, of geology, in which humans have this devastating impact. Biodiversity loss, climate change, plastic pollution, other chemicals, all of these synopses. I want you to take your cursor, hover your cursor over it. I want you to read the synopsis as you read the passage. Okay, that's what you need to do with the whole thing. With the whole thing, I want you to just take your cursor, read the passage. For example, if it's a composition of the Earth, this is basic geography, but I want you to read it. Read it nonetheless, and then take your cursor over every one of these highlighted words. See what it is. Just form a picture. Just paraphrase, narrate the language in your head, and don't do anything else. This is all you need to do. And I want you to do this for this entire article. You'll find a lot of content. It's going to teach you, even this just plain exercise might just teach you the equivalent of a whole book in environment. If you just do this, just read the synopsis and the article itself. That's what you need to do in round one. Take, for example, another example, saline water. Seawater, salt water is water from sea or ocean. On average, seawater in the world's ocean has a salinity of 3.5. This means that approximately 35 grams of dissolved salts. Average density is this, okay? Doesn't say much about climate, but it's good to know what this means, because ocean salinity is something you are going to read about. You're going to read about this, and it's an important topic in environment. Surface of the Earth, continuous body of water, an ocean, okay? And then let's say river, natural water course, stream. This is again basic geography. You can skip the very basic words, but you will figure out which words are important. So take, for example, hydrological cycle, water cycle. This is good. This synopsis I would recommend reading. Stream banks, another important word, looks like an important word. Surface runoff, also important word. You will find this word keeps coming when you talk of flooding, when you talk of river management. This word will keep coming again and again. You'll encounter it. Groundwater recharge. See, just the synopsis tells you so much. Another important word appears in the synopsis, aquifer. Aquifer, you see it here? Another important word. So that's what you do with this whole article. It's not a very big one, but please go through it. Also enjoy these images, These images give you context. These are great images and they are very pertinent, and this article is also highly updated. I believe it was a recent 2022 is the last update. But so this mechanism of hovering your cursor is what I want you to do, and I want you to read this whole thing in round one. This I think should take you a couple of hours at most. That is my estimate. So that was round one. Round one is the wiki read, which I just walked you through. Round two is a little bit more complex, and it is where you will get to the details of where the exam specific things. And much of this round one that you did and the synopsis that you read will now help you develop a deeper understanding and the entire foundation. So in round two, I have created a document for you, a document for you. It's called the Wiki Challenge. This document I will send you. You will have this. It is a list. I'll show you this document. So this is the document that you will find. It consists of environmental problems and a list of issues I have highlighted. I've selected these. It's a rather long list, and they are all important things which I suppose you should know. So then what you're going to do next is you will basically fill this table, and I'll tell you how. You'll notice that this table consists of this structure. It says environmental issues. All the issues that I want you to research are listed here. Then impact and salient features. And that you will find is divided into global and India specific. So I want you to fill both separately. So if you're doing greenhouse gas emissions, I want you to fill the salient features of greenhouse gas emissions for the global point of view and the India specific point of view. You can research this. You can search for it on Wikipedia, but only on Wikipedia, and you will find it. You will find it because I've already found it. I want you to search for it. I want you to read, and I want you to arrive at that knowledge. And then I want you to paraphrase it. So when you look for greenhouse, by the way, all these things, all these are links themselves. I have embedded the links themselves. So if you click on this, it's going to open a link for you. It's going to open a link for greenhouse gases on Wikipedia for you, and so on for the rest. But that probably won't be enough. You'll need to research even more to fill this up properly. This part is basically the impact. This part is basically the mitigation and the efforts which are being done to resolve the issue for greenhouse gas emissions. These are also divided into global and India specific. So you need to fill this entire column, and you can copy paste. I don't mind that. But you need to paraphrase it, and you need to cut it short to no more than 200 words combined, all combined. 200, at most 250 per issue. If this is greenhouse gas emission is one issue, take all the words you're going to fill in this cell, take all the words you're going to fill in this cell, and it should not be more than 250 words total. So you'll have to be very selective. You can use bullet points, you can use whatever you want, but you have to go to YouTube, to Wikipedia. You have to search for, you have to find out these. You have to fill this whole document. It's full of these very important issues: soil salinization, groundwater pollution, genetic pollution, desertification, nutrient pollution, algal bloom, alkali soil, light pollution, the shutdown of thermohaline circulation. And I don't expect you to know this. I want you to research it, and I want you to basically fill this whole thing. That is your challenge. This is round 2 of that challenge. So just to repeat for the sake of clarity, issues are listed here. In the second portion here, you need to divide salient features into global and India specific. Many times they will be common, but still I want you to have that experience of looking for India specific things. What is India specific when it comes to greenhouse gas emissions? I want you to figure that out, because that will end up coming in the exam. It's very likely. Okay. Then solutions. This is a very large topic actually, and you will be very hard pressed. You'll find it very hard to condense it, but let it be hard. Condense it. Figure out what exactly is happening in the world about greenhouse gas emission mitigation globally, and what's happening about it in India, and then write those bullet points. That is how you will fill this one issue you'll cover, and then in the similar manner, likewise, you'll cover the rest. That is your challenge. This is not an easy challenge. It is hard work, but it is absolutely fundamental, and it was going to give you a very rich return on investment, because it will just take you through the entire thing. You will learn more from this challenge than you'll ever learn from reading a bunch of books. Okay, and so use the structure that is there, use the technology that is there, use it to your advantage. Also, and most importantly, when you do this challenge, give it time. It may take 2, 3, 4, maybe even more hours. Maybe you will need to do this in 2 sittings. But if the whole thing can be covered over a weekend, if you cover the whole thing, both these rounds, then you will have covered a very large portion of environment, whether or not you realize it. Whether or not you realize it, you will have covered it. Let me just take you back to, again, give you perspective. Look at these questions from the previous year, prelims. Do you think you will encounter climate action tracker somewhere if you look for mitigations? For sure, you will encounter it somewhere. Will you encounter this EP100 or climate group? I think so, for sure. Will you encounter anthropogenic sources of methane and nitrous oxide? Very, very sure that you will encounter these as you do that challenge. They will appear. Same for these mains questions. All of these. Most of these you'll find appear in your research when you do mitigation. When you do mitigation for climate change and stuff like that, these will appear. And that's the reason why it's structured this way. I suppose it is, the power of it, I really think, is in the structure and the simplicity of it. But it's not easy. Okay, it's not supposed to be easy. And it's supposed to be interesting, however. And that's what my final message to you today is. It's enriching, interesting. You're learning a lot. You're learning a lot in a very short time. And you're learning it within the confines of a challenge. There's a challenge in which you are confined, and you are basically, I've given you some rules, I've given you structure so that you don't stray too much, so that you don't go all over the place. You have one place to go, no other place. You have the internet. You have two things to open on your desktop, on your system. One is the Wikipedia and the various links that you may research. The other is that document. That's it. And within these confines, I want you to finish this challenge. I hope that it gives you benefit, and I did experiment with it with few students who did this sort of an exercise, and it was very enriching. It led to a very, very quick increase in their knowledge base for environment, and this fear that students have about this particular topic, and the question which they keep asking is which book to read, which book to read. No book is needed. Environment will be largely from current affairs, and that too, even within current affairs, it will be largely about human impact, and within human impact, it will be largely about mitigation. Okay, that's environment for the UPSC exam for you in 30 minutes or less. Let the challenge begin, enjoy the process, take full benefit of the structure and the opportunity and everything that it entails. I wish you all the best, and I will see you next time.